I want to tell you about a brand that flew to Vietnam. 30K in travel cost, two founders, 5 days, three factory tours. They came back confident, shook hands, placed a 180K production order. 6 months later, wrong materials, 23% defect rate, 42K in unusable inventory. Now I want to tell you about another brand, never left your office. Three video calls, paid for 100 for samples, run a 300 unit test orders. 4 months later, production running at 98.7% quality, on-time delivery, relationship still strong 2 years later. Same country, same product category, completely different outcomes. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The brands that flew there and lost 42K didn't lose because they didn't visit. They lost because they visited the wrong way. They toured the floor, they had dinner, they saw the equipment, and they never once asked the 10 questions that would have told them this factory was not ready for their product. And the brand that never left the office, they asked every single one of those questions on a Zoom call. This video is a complete playbook for vetting suppliers remotely, not as a shortcut, not as a compromise, but as a rigorous systematic process that will tell you more about a factory than a 2 day visit ever will. Of course, I still encourage you to meet your vendors, but this is a non negotiable step. Where to find suppliers that are not just the first result on Alibaba. The four-step qualification process that eliminates 90% of the wrong choices before you spend a dollar. The exact 10 questions to ask on a video call and what the answers reveal about whether this factory is ready for you. The red flags that mean walk away immediately no matter how good the price is. And the budget to set aside so you're not surprised by what this process actually costs. I have been doing this for 17 years. This is the process I actually use. Let's go. We are in month 2 of the May sourcing series. Week 1, the China plus 1 reality check, why most founders get burned and what the ones who succeed do differently. Week 2, the SKU level sourcing scorecard, which product should move, which should stay, which should be dual sourced. This week, you've identified the SKUs, you've chosen the country. Now, how do you actually find a factory you can trust in a place where you have no relationship and no track record? Next week is the full transition case study, how one brand moved 30% of production without a single disruption. Let's talk about why remote vetting works. Because I know some of you are skeptical, the old mental model is you cannot really know a factory until you walk the floor. And there is truth in that. I am not going to pretend a factory visit has zero value. We've been visiting factories. But here is what factory visits often are in practice. You see the showroom floor, the area they cleaned up for you. You meet the sales director who has been trained to say exactly what you want to hear. You have dinner and feel a connection. And then you go home and assume everything behind the curtain matches what you saw. COVID forced thousands of brands to vet suppliers without visiting. And what they discovered is that a structured remote process, the right questions, the right documentation, the right sample and test order sequence reveals more about a factory's real capabilities than a 2 day tour of their best looking equipment. Because in remote process, you are not seeing what they want to show you. You are asking what they know. And how they answer tells you everything. Before you can vet a supplier, you have to find one. And where you can find them matters more than most founders realize. There are 5 sources. Each one has a different quality profile, a different time investment, and a different level of pre-vetting already done. Of course, number 1 is Alibaba. Let's start with the obvious one because everyone starts here and nobody talks honestly about what it is and what it isn't. Alibaba is a starting point, not a solution. The problem is not that Alibaba has bad suppliers. Some of the best factories in the world have Alibaba listings. The problem is signal to noise. There are over 150K suppliers on Alibaba in apparel category alone. A significant number of those are trading companies, middlemen presenting themselves as manufacturers. Their prices look great, their response times are fast, their samples are beautiful. And then you place a bulk order and it gets produced by a third party you've never met, with quality standards you've never verified, at a price that leaves no room for actual specs. Now, here's how to use Alibaba correctly. Filter for gold supplier with trade assurance. That's the minimum floor. Look for verified factories with on-site checks completed, not just self-reported. Now, read the product categories carefully. A factory that makes both luxury handbags and cheap phone cases and also automotive parts, that is a trading company, not a specialized manufacturer. Look for a response quality, not just response speed. The best factories give you detailed, specific answers. They ask you clarifying questions, they push back on unrealistic expectations, and that's a good sign. Use Alibaba to build a long list. Use everything that comes after that to cut it down. Source number two, trade shows without going. You don't have to attend a trade show to access its supplier list. Canton Fair, Vietnam International Trade Fair, Magic, and Las Vegas per apparel. These shows publish exterior directories. And here's the hidden value. Exhibitors at major trade shows have already passed a baseline vetting. They paid to be there. They showed up. They're trying to build real business relationships. That's a different starting quality than a random Alibaba listing. Go to the show websites, download the exhibitor directories for your category, research the manufacturers directly, reach out with a specific inquiry, not a generic RFQ, but a specific question about their capability for your product type. The quality of their response will tell you a lot before you ever get on a call. Source number three, sourcing agents. A sourcing agent is a local representative based in the country you're sourcing from who finds and vets factories on your behalf. They typically charge 3 to 7% of the production value or a flat monthly retainer. And for brands new to a country, they're often worth every dollar. Here's why. They already have relationships. They know which factories are reliable and which ones are notorious in the local industry. They can visit on your behalf. They speak the language, not just literally, but culturally. The risk is alignment. A bad sourcing agent is just recommending factories that give them the best kickback, not the best match for your product. How to vet the sourcing agent? Ask for 3 references from brands similar to yours. Call them. Ask explicitly. Do you receive any compensation from the factories you recommend before the fee I pay you? The honest ones will tell you the structure, the dishonest ones will get vague. Ask how many factories they have actually worked with. An agent with deep relationship in 20 to 40 factories has real leverage. An agent claiming 200 relationship is probably not deeply connected to any of them. If the agent cannot tell you specific things about specific factories, their current capacity utilization, then quality performance history, which customers have worked with them, they don't actually know the factories. They just have a list. Source for referrals, the most reliable source. This is the source most founders underuse. A referral from a brand that has already vetted and worked with a factory in the highest quality lead you can get. The factory has already been proven for your product category. The hard questions have already been answered. The defect rate history already exists. Where do you get referrals? Your industry peer network, other DTC founders in your space, not direct competitors, but adjacent categories. Supply chain communities, there are active Slack groups, circle communities, LinkedIn groups where DTC founders share sourcing recommendations. Your 3PL, they see the inbound product quality from dozens of brands. They know which factories are producing consistently and which ones cause problems. Ask them. Your freight forwarder, same logic. They have visibility across many brands, supply chains. A warm referral from a trusted peer cuts you vetting time in half because the first 50% of the work has already been done. Source 5, LinkedIn, the underused channel. This one surprises people. Factory owners and production directors are on LinkedIn, especially in Southeast Asia, India, and Mexico, where international business development is a priority. Search for factory owner, Vietnam apparel, or production manager, India leather goods. Look for people with real profiles, photos with working history, connections to other people in the industry. You send a direct message, not a templated RFQ, but a specific professional message. I'm a DTC brand doing X volume of Y products category. We're evaluating secondary sourcing options in Vietnam. I came across your profile and your factory's work in this space. Would you be open to a 20-minute conversation about whether we might be a fit? the response rate is higher than you expected. And the factories that respond well to a cold professional inquiry on LinkedIn are often the ones that communicate well in long-term relationship, because communication style at sourcing is a preview of a communication style at production. So here's the hierarchy. Referrals first, highest quality, most pre-vetted, trade show directories second, baseline legitimacy filter already applied, sourcing agents third, especially for new countries with no existing relationships, LinkedIn direct fourth, underused, often high quality, Alibaba last, largest pool, most noise, requires the most filtering. Build your long list from all five. Cut it down with the process I'm about to show you. Once you have the list of potential suppliers, there is a four-step process I use to go from long list to short list to test partner. Most founders skip steps 2 or 3. That is almost always where the expensive mistakes happen. Do not skip steps. Step number 1, initial screening, eliminate 80%. The goal of the step 1 is to cut your list from 20 or 30 potential suppliers down to 4 or 5 worth a real conversation. You're not evaluating yet, you are filtering. Send each supplier the same short inquiry, not a full RFQ, for specific questions. 1. What product categories do you specialize in? And what percentage of your production is in this category? 2. What certifications do you hold? And can you provide documentations? 3. What is your average defect rate on final quality inspection and how is that measured? 4. Can you provide 2 or 3 references from brands you currently produce for? Now, evaluate the responses. A factory that specializes in your category and can tell you exactly what percentage of their floor runs it will. A factory that says we can make anything trading company, or a factory that takes any order and figures out capability later. A factory that sends certifications within 48 hours without hesitations, organized, legitimate. A factory that says we can get you those but never does. Either they don't have them or they're forging them. Both are problems. A factory that gives you a specific defect rate with a measurement methodology, they're actually measuring quality. A factory that says our quality is excellent with no data, they're not measuring quality, they're just hoping. References with names, company names, and contact information, legitimate. Our clients prefer to stay confidential. Every client prefers to stay confidential. But real factories have relationships they can call in a favor with. Vague references are a screen. Cut everyone who fails 2 or more of these filters. You should have 4 to 6 suppliers left. Step number 2, capability assessment, the video call. Step 2 is the video call, but not the kind of most founders do. Most founders schedule a call with whoever responds to their inquiry, which is almost always a sales or business development person. Salespeople are trained to answer yes to almost every question. Can you hit these quality specs? Yes. Can you meet the timeline? Yes. Can you handle the volume? Yes. The production team has a very different conversation. Before you schedule the call, request this specifically. I'd like to have a call with your production manager or technical director, the person who would be directly responsible for manufacturing our products. Would that be possible? Good factors will say yes immediately. Some will push back and say the sales team handles all inquiries. That pushback is information. A factory confident in their production team is proud to introduce them. A factory that shields their production team from customer conversations either has something to hide or doesn't have a strong enough operation to speak for itself. I will take you through exactly what to ask on that call in the next session. Step number 3, samples, pay for them. This is where most founders either skip entirely or do it wrong. Getting a free sample is almost meaningless. Here's why. When you ask a free sample, the factory pulls something from their existing stock or runs a one-off using their best material and most experienced operator. You are seeing their best case scenario, not their production reality. Now, when you pay for samples, $50 to $500 depending on the product complexity, you get an actual production sample. They run it through their real process and you see what bulk production actually looks like. When the sample arrives, evaluate 3 things. Materials. Do they match the spec exactly, or are they approximate? Construction. Are tolerance consistent throughout, or do they vary? Finishing. Is the quality consistent across the home piece, or just the part that are visible at first glance? labeling and packaging it as exactly what you specified, or did they improvise? Then do something most founders don't. Order 2 to 3 samples in the same spec at different times. Consistency across multiple sample runs is more predictive of bulk production quality than any single perfect sample. If sample 1 is perfect and sample 2 has visible variation, that is a process consistency problem. A factory with a process consistency problem at sample stage will have worse process consistency problems at 10K units. Step 4, test orders, the paid trial. Step 4 is the test order. 100 to 500 units, real production run, full price, not a favor, not a discounted trial, but full price. The purpose of the test order is not to build inventory. The purpose is to evaluate production consistency at scale. Is the quality consistent across 500 units and not just 10? Communication during production. How do they handle questions, changes, issues that arise during the run? Lead time accuracy. Did they hit the date they committed to? Proactive communication. Did they tell you about problems before you asked? Or did you find it out during delivery? The last point is critical. A factory that hides production problems until delivery is a factory that will hide production problems at 50K units as well. A factory that calls you 3 weeks in and say we found a material inconsistency in the second batch, here's how we're fixing it, that factory has quality culture. Quality culture is the thing that protects you when something goes wrong at scale, and something will always eventually go wrong at scale. The test order shows you whether that factory has it. The full 4 steps process takes 4 to 8 weeks from the first inquiry to test order completion. I know that feels slow, but compared to 6 months of production problems and 42K in unusable inventory. Do not skip steps. Here are the 10 questions I ask on every supplier video call, and more importantly, what the answers reveal. Question number 1, what are you best known for making? Not what can you make, but what are you best known for? A factory with real specialization answers this with enthusiasm and specificity. We're known for our work in technical outdoor apparel. About 60% of our floor runs waterproof and breathable fabrics. A factory without real specializations gives you a list. We do apparel, accessories, soft goods, promotional items, home goods. That list is not specialization. That is a capacity hunting. Your product deserves a factory that has mastered its category. Question number 2, can I speak to one of your current production customers as a reference? Watch what happens after you ask this question. Does the response come in 24 hours with a name and contact? Or does it take 3 emails and a week to produce a vague name with no company affiliation? Real factories have real relationships they're proud of. References should be companies similar to yours, similar product category, similar volume, not a Fortune 500 brand reference designed to impress you, but not actually comparable to what you need. When you get the reference, call them. Ask 2 questions. What's one thing this factory does better than you expected? What's one thing you wish you'd known before placing your first production order? Those 2 questions will tell you more than 100 factory toured photos. Question number 3, what certifications do you hold and for which markets? BSCI, SA8000, ISO 9001, Oecotex, GOTS, depending on your product category in target market, specific certifications may be required by your retail partners or important to your customer base. But the reason I asked this question is not primarily about the specific certifications. It's about the quality management culture those certifications represent. A factory that pursues and maintains certification has documentation process, audit trails, corrective action systems. A factory with no certifications and no interest in them is running on personal judgment and experience. That's not always bad, but it's a risk profile you need to understand. Question number 4, what is the defect rate on final quality inspection? Any factory that has real quality management system knows the number, not approximately, specifically. Our FQI defect rate runs between 1.8 to 2.4 depending on the product category. If they can give you a number, they're not measuring quality. They are just hoping for the best and dealing with problems as they arise. And then, follow-up question, how is that measured and who measures it? Is it measured by the production team themselves or by a separate QC team? Self-measured defect rates with no independent verification are optimistic at best. Question number 5, how do you handle quality issues discovered after shipment? This question reveals more about the factory's character than almost any other. Listen for ownership language. If there is a production defect that we are responsible for, we replace the affected units at our cost. Versus deflection language. We always make sure quality is correct before shipment so this doesn't happen. It will happen. At some point, in some form, something will go wrong. You want to know how this factory behaves when it does. Question 6, what is your current capacity and utilization rate? A factory running at 95% capacity has very little room for your order without pushing someone else's out, which means you may get deprioritized when they're busy and overpromised when they're hungry for business. The sweet spot is a factory running at 70 to 85% utilization. They have capacity for you, but they're busy enough to be well managed. A factory at 40% utilization in a normally active period should prompt a question. Why? Did they lose a major customer? Are they new and still building their books? Is there something the industry knows about them that you don't? Question number 7, can you show me the production floor on this call right now? Not a recorded video, not photos, but live right now. Good factories are proud of their floor. The production manager pulls out their phone and walks you through it in real time. Watch for organization. Is the floor clean and organized? Are materials stored properly? Is there a logical flow from raw materials to finished goods? People. Are workers moving with purpose or standing around? Are their supervisors visible on the floor or is everyone unsupervised? Equipment. Does the equipment look maintained? Are there current models alongside older ones, suggesting ongoing reinvestment? A factory that hesitates, makes excuses, or offers to send you photos instead of hiding something. What they're hiding may be minor, an untidy day, or significant, you don't know which, and that uncertainty is a flag. Question number 8, what is the lead time for the first order versus a reorder? These numbers should be different, and if a factory says they're the same, you probably don't understand the question or they're not being honest. First orders require sampling, approval, material procurement, tooling setup, and production scheduling for a new customer. Reorders run on an established process with approved materials already sourced. A factory that says 8 weeks for both is either very unusual or telling you what you want to hear. Understand both numbers. Build your inventory planning around the first order number, not the reorder number, because the first order is what you live through. Question number 9, what are your payment terms and what do they tell me about your business? Standard terms are 30 deposit, 70 on shipment. That is normal. A factory demanding 50% or 60% deposit from a new customer is either cash flow constrained or compensating for a high cancellation rate. Neither is automatically disqualifying, but both warrant a direct conversation about why. A factory offering unusually favorable terms, 20% deposit, 60 days net, should raise the question of why they need your business badly enough to extend those terms. Desperate factories make compromises to win orders. Those compromises usually appear later. Last question, question number 10. Under what circumstances would you reject an order or tell a customer you cannot deliver on time? This is the one that matters most, and it is the one almost nobody asks. A factory with standards, answer this without hesitation. If the approved materials become unavailable and a substitute doesn't meet specs, we would contact you and stop production until we resolve it. If we have a capacity conflict with unexisting customers committed to the order, we would tell a new customer we cannot hit a timeline before accepting the order. A factory without standards either says they would never face that situation or gives you a vague non-answer. The factories that will tell you bad news early are the factories worth working with. Because alternative is a factory that knows there's a problem and says nothing until the shipment is 3 weeks late. Run through all 10. The answers don't have to be perfect, but the pattern of how they answer specifically, honestly, with ownership, with data, that patterns tell you whether this is a factory with a real quality culture or a factory that's telling you what they think you want to hear. Now, let me talk about red flags, not yellow flags, things to watch, questions to ask. Red flags. Things that mean stop. Do not proceed. Do not place an order. Because there is nothing more expensive in sourcing than ignoring a red flag you saw coming. Red flag number one, reluctance to show the factory. I covered this in the video call section, but it bears repeating as a hard stop. Any hesitation to show you the production floor live on a call is a red flag, not a yellow flag. Prep. The entire premise of remote vetting is transparency in place of physical presence. A factory that resists that transparency is telling you something important about what they protect. Walk away. Red flag number two, the price that is too good. If you've done your research and you know the rough market range for your product, a price that is 30% or more below that range is not a deal. It's a warning. Factory makes money by managing their cost. If they're quoting you at a price that leaves no room for quality materials, skilled labor, or reasonable profit, something is being cut. You will find out what is being cut when the order arrives. Red flag number three, barriers to factory information. Trading companies often present themselves as manufacturers. They cannot give you specific answers about the factory. Can I know the factory name and location? We protect our suppliers' relationship. What is trading company answer? You're not asking them to reveal the trade secret. You're just asking them where your product is going to be made. If they won't tell you, you have no visibility into the actual manufacturing facility, the working conditions, the certifications, and the real quality processes. You are outsourcing your supply chain to someone who outsources it to someone else. Red flag number four, pressure around timings or minimums. We had a product slot available next month, but we need your deposit this week. Our MOQ is 10K units, but we can do 5K if you confirm today. Urgency created by a supplier is almost never real. It is either desperation, they need the order, they need money, or manipulation, they know that pressure clouds judgment. Neither is a factory you want making their product. Good factories with real capacity manage their production schedules deliberately. They don't create artificial agency. Red flag number five, vague answers on quality process. If a factory cannot specifically describe their quality inspection process, at what stages inspection happen, who conducts them, how defects are documented and addressed, they do not have a quality management system. They have hope. And hope is not a quality process. Ask specifically, walk me through your quality checkpoints from raw material receipt to final inspection. A real answer takes 2 to 3 minutes and includes specific stages, roles, and documentation. A vague answer takes 10 seconds and says, we check everything carefully before shipment. Here's the rule. 1 red flag, pause. Ask a direct question. Listen very carefully to the answer. 2 red flags, serious consideration. 3 red flags, walk away. I don't care how good the price is. I don't care how much you want to hit your timeline. 3 red flags means the factory will cost you more than you save every single time. Before I give you your action plan, I want to be honest about what this process costs because founders who go into sourcing exploration without a realistic budget almost always cut corners when they run out of money. And the corners they cut are usually the ones that cost the most. Realistic budget for remote supplier vetting is $5,000 to $10,000. Here, where that goes. Sourcing agent fees if you use one, $1,500 to $3K for initial engagement and shortlisting. Sample costs across 4 to 6 suppliers, $300 to $1,500 total. Test orders, $2,000 to $500 depending on the product and volume. Third-party quality inspection like VTRAs for the test orders. A local inspection firm in the manufacturing country will give you an independent assessment of the test order quality. That assessment is worth 10 times what it costs. Miscellaneous like translation, documentation review, reference call, facilitation, $500 to $1,000, total 5K to 10K. That budget finds you a qualified, tested, verified supplier. Compare that to the brand that flew to Vietnam and cost 42K. The remote process is not cheaper because it's less thorough. It's cheaper because it's more efficient. Realistic timeline is 6 to 10 weeks from the first outreach to test order completion. Week 1 to 2, initial outreach and screening. Build your long list, send initial inquiries, filter responses. Week 2 to 3, video calls with the production teams. 4 to 6 calls, 10 questions, shortlist to 2 or 3. Week 3 to 5 sample orders from 2 to 3 finalists. Pay for them. Evaluate properly. Week 5 to 9 test orders. And week 9 to 10 decision. Scale up or continue evaluating. 6 to 10 weeks. Then you are in the production with a supplier you actually know. Here's your action plan starting this week. Step 1, go back to the scorecard from last week's video, which SKUs are your move candidate. That is a product category you're vetting suppliers for. Step 2, build your long list. All 5 sources. Referrals first, trade show, directories, sourcing agents, LinkedIn, Alibaba. Aim for 15 to 20 candidates before you start filtering. Step 3, send the 4 initial screening questions to every supplier on your list this week. Do not customize. Same for questions to everyone. Step 4, filter the responses ruthlessly. Cut everyone who fails 2 or more filters. You should have 4 to 6 now. Step 5, schedule video calls with production teams, not sales, for next week. That is 5 steps this week and next week. We're not placing an order. You are not committing to anything. You are gathering data. And data is how this decision gets made correctly. Next week video, the whole series has been building toward. I'm taking you inside a real transition. A brand that moved 30% of their production from China to Vietnam, start to finish, not the strategy, not the framework, the actual decisions, the actual timeline, the actual problems that came up and how they solved them. The mistakes they made, the things that went faster than expected, the moment they almost gave up, and why they did it. This is the case study I've been referencing all month. And if you've been following this series, this is the video that makes it all real. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And this week on Unbox Weekly, my newsletter for DTC founders, I'm going deep on something directly connected to what we covered today, the third-party inspection industry. Specifically, which inspection firms are worth using in Vietnam, India, and Mexico right now, what a proper inspection reports look like, and what inspection results on a test order actually tell you about what to expect at the full production scale. Because the 300 to 600 I mentioned for a third-party inspection only worth it if you're using the right firm and reading the report correctly. That breakdown is in this week's issue. Subscribe link is in the description. Free. Last thing, tell me in the comments which of the 10 questions do you think you would most tempted to skip? I'm asking because the answer tells me where the next video needs to go deeper. And honestly, the question most founders want to skip is usually the one that matters the most. See you next week.